You're listening to Through Help and Back. Through Help and Back is a podcast focused on mental health, addiction, treatment, recovery, and all things related to personal improvement and wellness. Don't worry, we're not here to talk about problems without solutions, and we're definitely not here to talk about struggles without success. So come with your problems, leave with our solutions. Miss Janis Willie, how are you tonight? Thank you for coming by. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For the folks who don't know, I mean, you're out there. You've got some great content that we're going to dig into. But where in the world are you coming to us today?
Boulder, Colorado. Yeah, specifically like Superior, Louisville area, in between Boulder and Denver.
Nice. Don't give too much detail. You want to keep it like just kind of triangulate yourself there. So, what is life like in Boulder, Colorado? I've never been there.
Well, right now it's trying to decide whether it wants to be spring or winter still. It's beautiful. Yeah. Mountains, lots of hiking, lots of outdoor activities.
Nice. Well, maybe it's doing like New Hampshire. We've got a nice mix of slush and mud that kind of looks like this weird brown soup right now. And every now and then there's like a stalk of green, like just, it's like trying, but it's not quite ready.
Sounds like you're on the verge of making another vegan joke.
No. Ian's becoming a very powerful vegan, so I'm not going to make any more vegan jokes. He's gotten a hold of some pea protein or something that I don't know about. But Ian and I go back and forth on the carnivore vegan thing, so I don't want to mess with Ian too much longer. So that's great. So Jess, tell us a little bit about your work. I mean, I think Boulder, for the way you describe it and what we know of it, is kind of a beautiful setting for what you're doing. I don't want to mislabel or misdescribe any of it, because as I told you before we started filming, I've really been kind of absorbing your content, and I'm really intrigued. It's kind of a different way at getting at healing, and I hope I'm not stepping too far out of bounds, but not only healing, but just sort of investing and enriching yourself prior to the need for healing. I see a real potential for maintenance and keeping your spirit level and, keeping things balanced. So give us the quick introduction to what you've been working on and how that's working for you.
Yeah. So we're Creative Conscious Connections. We're a holistic group therapy practice that really empowers individuals, mostly adults and teens, to like make those deeper connections with themselves and also with others and then the earth. And we do that through the power of like expressive arts and contemplative practices in both like individual and group sessions. So I love how you brought up like that nurturance, that nourishment piece. And what I'm really passionate about right now is the workshop that I'm leading called Deeply Rooted Sound, Voice, and Art.
Amazing. So I want to unpack some of that terminology through there, right? So as with any practice, you kind of choose your name intentionally. So the Creative Conscious Connections, can you tell me about the origin there and why you decided to label that way?
Yeah. I'm so excited that you're asking me this question, actually, because I put so much
Yes, it's the whole thing.
I put so much thought into it, and I don't think anyone's actually asked me that before. So I'm excited that you asked.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I think of healing, I think of going inward first and really changing the things that I want to change inside in order to change on the outside. Was trained at Naropa, and their whole slogan is change yourself, change the world. And for my own personal healing, I've done a lot of that through creativity and expression. So that's the creative part. And the conscious part is just intentionally bringing awareness to what's happening in our body, in our mind, in our emotions, in our spirit. And then the connections piece is putting that all together. How can what we're discovering on the inside about how we're doing and combining that with some sort of expressive arts or contemplative practice help you heal on a deeper level.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing because that's what I was thinking when I was thinking about our time together. There's no way that you just pulled those three words out of the air. They had to have come intentionally, and even with the connection, I said, I bet these are connected in some way, right? There's a progression through your name. So that's amazing. So what type of folks are you working with, right? So myself, I was a therapist, so everybody comes to me with a diagnosis or seeking a diagnosis or not liking the diagnosis they already got, wanting a new one, so I have some of those traditional skills, but I'm wondering, who comes to you, who benefits from your practice? Like, what kind of patients are you working with?
Yeah, we have two demographics that we mostly work with. So it's myself and our therapist, Maddie King. Maddie King works with adults, young adults, mostly college-age students and teens that are experiencing anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, chronic illness, stress, overwhelm, maybe going through a transition between high school to college, those sorts of challenges. And then I work mostly with adult women who are really looking for a way to improve their confidence and to feel more empowered, and also learn how to self-soothe and regulate and reach those deeper states of relaxation, because that's where some really deep healing can happen. And so I work with women from the ages of 16 to 80. I just started working with a woman that's 80 years old, and everyone's different in what they're wanting to work with.
Yeah, but I love some of what you're talking about there with dysregulation, confidence, awareness of self, because, we work with a lot of adolescents. I have throughout my entire career, and there's been a big, huge push to improve self-confidence, right? Like we all worshiped at the altar of self-esteem there for a while. If we can just get everybody's self-esteem really high. And so there's been all this awareness of it and all this talk of it, but I find that these may be at the all-time lowest levels. I don't know how you measure that exactly, but I just know that the issues we're dealing with in terms of that self-confidence piece and acceptance of self, and I feel it's getting worse, not better, despite all the noise and effort around that. Are you seeing the same?
I am, and I see a lot of external validation too, this need for external validation, and that's not where confidence and self-esteem comes from. It comes from inside and feeling connected, those creative conscious connections with the inside world of what's happening, and then expressing it outwards to build that confidence.
Yep. I know what you mean by external validation, like the chase for likes and views and all kinds of stuff. And we talk a lot about social media on this. It's kind of intertwined into so many different, symptoms and disorders. And it has disconnected us in ways that the social connections, it's sort of the opposite of the intention, I think. But in the old days, you could go have a hard time at school, but you get a break when you go home. Now you're watching and looking for that validation. And if it doesn't come, you're sort of riding that roller coaster of self-esteem all the time, and it must be awful. I mean, to be 16 right now, no thanks. It must be really tough. So you had mentioned a little bit about kind of like from personal healing and, your background and where you studied. Can you kind of take me back a little bit about, did you get into was your first interest in traditional therapies and then this evolved, or was this kind of always the path that you were on? And does this come from personal experience and personal healing that you'd be comfortable telling us about?
Yeah. Yeah, I have kind of my personal story that got me originally started and into the field of art therapy. And then I have this personal story that has, really inspired the really recent, work that I've been doing under the umbrella of art therapy. So I'll kind of start in the back. So yeah, I grew up, I lost my mom when I was 7 years old, and my dad left when I was 3. And so within the first, 7 years of my life, there was some big challenges that came up, and I lived with my adopted parents, and they noticed that I was really struggling in school and socially, emotionally, academically, and decided to send me to a camp called Camp Amanda. And that was my first introduction to the arts as a healing tool. And it was just as simple as like, they had these activities of like throwing a ball of yarn, in a group of people to each other and like all making this web of connection. And just like simple, creative, different interventions that were, super powerful for 7, I think I was 8 years old, to help, process some of that trauma.
And trauma is also a word that obviously, gets talked about a lot, obviously, by the definition and different opinions on that. But do you recall a lot of that? Like when you were 7, 8, I mean, obviously academic struggles, but do you recall, I can't imagine what that must have felt like or what you were feeling on a day-to-day basis. Is that still present with you and you remember that? And
I think I'll always remember that and hold a memory of those experiences within my body, but I have definitely done a lot of work around transforming that energy so that it serves me and so that it's not bringing me down anymore. Yeah. And my journey like only continued from there, from Camp Amanda. Like my aunt Dawn, she always like invited us to do arts and crafts at the holidays. And so that was always really helpful for me because I didn't always feel connected with my family for different reasons. And so I'd sit there and do art while we were all connecting. And that helped me kind of self-soothe as we were, communicating and connecting. And then later on down the road, I didn't originally go to college for therapy. I actually went for photojournalism.
Okay, of course.
And then had a really challenging college career, dropped out, moved to California to find myself. And that's where I found this author, Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy, SARK for short, who really inspired me to find this particular career choice, this career path. She wrote a book called Make Your Creative Dreams Real.
Okay. That sounded like, I have to imagine at that time, that sounded almost like a perfect match, like a perfect prescription for what you were hoping to do, because you have this, at this point in your life, you found this gift of creative expression. You've experienced the benefits. I feel better. I'm self-soothing. And it's like, oh, I can use this for other things and not just that. I can make it my career, my passion. That had to be an amazing experience.
It was. Yeah. That book helped me like put everything that I was passionate about all into one career. And that from that point forward, I went back to University of Iowa, finished undergrad, and then came to Naropa for grad school.
Culture shift, California to Iowa. That must have felt like like I never left home. Those are basically the same places. So, but I love it. You went to California, got what you needed, right? And you could return home with a different sense of self and a focus and a purpose to move forward. So, you made a comment in there about, yes, I've done a lot of work on those things. I may remember them, but they use them to serve me now. So can we talk a little bit about that transformation and like what is the difference between a memory that serves you or a memory that may hinder you or hold you back or be experienced as traumatic, right? Because with trauma, it's highly individualized and it seems to be something can happen to somebody and they carry on and somebody else can get stuck. It sounds like you found a way to not get stuck in those moments. So.
Yeah, I really have. And that brings me back to, the part of my personal story of why I'm doing what I'm passionate about now, which is this sound healing and vocal toning. I want to share like a specific example of what you're talking about. So the fires that happened last January here, the Marshall fires in Superior, they were pretty traumatic for a lot of people in the community. And I personally was stuck in my car for hours trying to get out of the area. And there were like flames in my rearview mirror. I couldn't get home to Cody. And my animals, he kind of left and went a different direction. And I had to go a different direction. And as I was sitting in the car for hours, I made a choice. Like I could sit there and in a normal traumatic situation, we let our nervous systems elevate. We start to get overwhelmed by emotions. Our body starts getting hot, our heart starts to race, and you can feel our anxiety getting rising up. And a lot of people like contract and hold. And this is when, a lot of trauma can get stuck in the body on a very energetic level. And intuitively, I knew to just start toning. And at that point, I hadn't had any vocal toning, experience. I just started going, and just felt like the vibrations in my body, and my nervous system went woo, 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 just like dropped down. And I did that for 6 hours. It took me 6 hours to get to Cody, and I did it for 6 hours in the car. And I truly believe that I didn't hold the trauma in my body like a lot of other people did, because I used that energy and I expressed it and I moved it out of my body as it was happening.
So that's fascinating, because and please clean up the language around it. But so your belief is that trauma has a physical hold in the body. It's not just about processing, and it's not just about how we store it as a memory, but it's how it moves through the body in a true physical structural nature. So you found a way to facilitate that movement through your body so it wouldn't get stuck, not even like finger quotes, like literally stuck in your body as a repeatable or, embedded experience.
Yeah, I teach my clients a lot the stress response cycle. I actually have a copy of it here just in case we talked about it.
She brought visual aids. This is all right. We're always down.
Visual aids.
We're always down for some visual aids. Yes, please talk us through that.
Essentially, so there's a stressor. So in this case, there were the fires, right? And there was activation. Like I could feel the activation in my system getting higher and higher. And so then in a normal stress response cycle, there needs to be some sort of response that completes that fight, flight, freeze, as you know, as a therapist. And the way that I focus on teaching my clients how to do that is through movement, voice, and art under the umbrella of expressive arts. And then to complete this cycle, you go back to like a sense of safety and connection, and then really important to go back into rest. And you can see I have some notes here because this is for my sound healing workshop. Like the sound bath is like the rest part, but a lot of people get stuck in these other two cycles. So they go from stressor to activation, and then they might go to stress response. They might move that energy through and complete that, but then they go straight back into a stressor without going into safety and rest. And that often shows up as like hyperarousal states, like people who are constantly anxious, agitated, or angry. And then the other cycle that a lot of people get stuck in is this one here, where they come from rest to a stressor and then activation, but they don't complete it. They don't move it through and then come back into safety and rest. So they get stuck in this circle, which is often like that hypoarousal state where we're depressed or zoned out.
So those are your anxiety and depression pathways. And the cure, if you will, or the healthier way of transitioning through that is to find a way to get through that safety piece. Because, and again, I'm interpreting this, so correct me left and right if I need to be corrected, but it feels like if you can get to that safety piece, it allows the brain to properly categorize the experience. And so it doesn't have to categorize it as this repeatable stressor, but it's something I experienced or went through, but I found safety on the other side of that. So it doesn't have to be a thing we mark for future monitoring, right? Like our sympathetic nervous system is always looking, right? And so, you stuck in the car, because you found rest and safety, now when you're stuck in traffic, you don't have to go back to that same place physically as when you were being threatened by these fires. Am I close? Am I in the ballpark?
I think you're exactly, correct. I think it's those three pieces, that stress response, moving that energy through. And I did that with the vocal toning. And then later that evening, I found that safety and connection with my husband when we met back up. And then I rest, and then I got rest. Before other stressors started coming through.
Because without that safety piece, so I've heard it described as, living in a traumatic household or living in an abusive household, it's sort of like having a bear in the house, right? Like you're not constantly being attacked, but it's always around, right? So you're always kind of on alert. But this rest piece would be to like get the bear into a cage, right? So you can like let your system, kind of relax, let your sympathetic system kick in. I've got it properly categorized. I've got some power here. I've got some options. And so I don't have to escalate. That's amazing. And what's amazing about that is some of that stuff, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. Some of that stuff is almost like a given. Like the multiple pathways that you showed me right there are new. That's new information to me. It's for me, it was always, you're going to, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. But your view on it introduces some options and some choices. So it's not like a life sentence, right? There's options for you. It doesn't have to go that way.
Yeah. Part of my process, my creative process around that particular event was writing a spoken word, writing a poem and a spoken word to kind of share what was happening for me in that moment so that it might help other people. So I did bring that today in case you want me to share it.
In case, is there any doubt? It's an amazing story. By the way, we're sort of glazing over the fact that you were like in the middle of a national story. Like we all knew about these wildfires and saw the destruction. By the way, on the heels of COVID, right? And so more trauma, disconnection, and to not only survive that, but to find some avenues and ability to thrive. Like, yes, of course, I want to see and hear every piece of information you have connected to that. So yeah, if you're willing to share, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I just find it really helpful, and I share this with, all the participants at my workshop right now, because it's not only for people who need resources during these traumatic events, but also people that have anxiety driving, which is a lot of people in the world. So here's my spoken word. My body is warm, my stomach feels torn, my muscles are tense, my breath I am unable to sense. My thoughts start to race, I am all over the place. Help me, please, before this turns into dis-ease. I feel overwhelmed, stuck, and afraid. Do I need to pull over? Who will come to my aid? Then I remember this magical power. I take a deep breath in as I imagine a color, filling my body with the strength of a whale, then release sound with my voice on an exhale. Inhale to brighten, exhale to expand, finding my center with my hand. Feeling the vibrations of my voice remind me that I have a choice to suffer or to grow, to suppress or to know. I have everything I need already inside of me.
I'm sitting with that for a minute. I want to clap, but I don't want to break it. It's like, so that you came up with that in that moment, or is this after when you're reflecting upon it, or?
This was after, as I was continuing to process that experience and how I used my tools and my resources to reduce that level of trauma that is in my body, that is my experience.
It's so interesting to me as I sit here and listen to you that you've had several things, and I'm sure these aren't the only things, that are well beyond your control in terms of loss, in terms of potential tragedy. Being stuck in a fire, all these things. But your language and your interpretation around these events is very choice-based, empowerment-based. I can choose to allow it to progress to disease, or I can put it to service for me. Is that sort of one of your foundational beliefs, that just you always have a choice in every situation? Is that kind of what you're rooted in terms of that? And if so, how do you've lived it, right? So how do you transmit that or translate that to other people and help them see their choices?
Yeah. That's like one of my pillars of the work that I do, is empowering people to have the right tools and resources so that they do feel like they have a choice. Do I feel like everyone has a choice in the moment? Not necessarily, because maybe they're not they're lacking those resources that they might be needing. And that's why, therapy and alternative therapies and coaches and, this whole realm is really important so that we can educate this, so we can gain that knowledge around these tools that can be helpful, that can help us make that choice in that moment.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Viktor Frankl and his work and logotherapy and Man's Search for Meaning? And I just, even in the middle of the concentration camp, right, there were choices to be made. And because you always have the choice of how to react, and you always have the choice of how to interpret what's happening, even in a horrible, awful, abusive, I mean, if you're ranking traumatic experiences in the world, right? I mean, losing your wife in a concentration camp and all of your friends and trying to survive that's got to be up there. And, and that was my favorite book for a long time, right? So to plant that in a way so it could grow for other people. I'm sorry, I talked over you. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, such a moving story of how to really listen intuitively to, to what could be really helpful in the moment in a traumatic situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And you having had some of those similar experiences, there's that phrase that we often, grow into the people we wish we had when we were young. And I've heard a version of that, like we become a person we would have trusted when we were young. Forgive my assumption here, but I don't know if you did it on purpose, but that seems to be where you've landed. It seems like young Janis could have used this Janis through some of those struggles for sure. So I don't know if you've had that awareness or if that was intentional, but it certainly seems like that's where you've gotten. So.
Most definitely. I think we're always our best teachers. We're just a little behind.
Yeah, right. That's life. You get the test first and then you get the lesson afterwards, right? So you were mentioning the vocal toning. I might call it humming. I might call it, just whatever kind of sound. I'm very interested to learn more about that and why that works. I mean, do you have the science behind that? Do you just know that it works? Like, what is going on with the toning and the humming and the natural kind of movements like that, the intuitive stuff? Because I have a personal story I'll share in a second, but I want to hear your take on why does that come out naturally? Why does that work? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your story.
It's not as good as yours, I'll warn you, but it's a story. So yeah.
I love hearing, how people just come to it naturally. But yeah, the science behind it is, and this is kind of encompassing sound healing in general. So sound healing takes the concept of ancient healing practices and mixes that with modern science around sound and what it does. And in the particular practice that I offer, it combines meditation, it combines visuals, visualizations, colors, sound and voice, and the elements: earth, air, fire, water, ether, space, light, and consciousness. And you work with the energy systems in the body. So it's working with energy too. So speaking of energy, 80% of our, chronic stress or dis-ease comes from suppressed emotions or chronic stress. And so if we can find a tool, it doesn't necessarily have to be vocal toning, but if we can find a tool to unlock and release those suppressed emotions, then overall we would be feeling much more healthier and happier. And so vocal toning takes the vibration of your voice and it goes down to like a cellular level, and the cells of your body entrain and matches the harmonious frequency of your voice or of the sound of the crystal bowl, whatever it is that you're experiencing. And it essentially resets your cells. It balances them to their natural state, which is harmony with the earth. So that's why you walk into a sound bath in one state and you come out a completely different other state, because it's just balancing your whole entire system, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual.
What is, forgive me for being naive, but I'll be the dumb guy. What is a sound bath?
Ooh, I'm excited.
I don't know. I kind of want one, but I'm not sure. I'm nervous. What is it? What is a sound bath? Yeah.
So it's kind of different for every person that gives the sound bath. We all have different ways of giving them. The way that I do it is it's a 2-hour experience, and you come in, I introduce sound healing, we have a meditation, then we do vocal toning as a group, and then I invite you to lay down, and I take you through another meditation or a visualization, and then I take you through like a soundscape. So right now, I take you through drumming, and then crystal singing bowls, the gong, ocean drum, chimes, and then like a shaker or a rattle. So it's a soundscape that allows you to just like completely deeply relax, come back into that safety, connection, and rest piece. And a lot of people drop into like a theta state where a lot of healing can happen. So it's a journey.
I was going to say, is it almost like inducing trance work? Is that what we're kind of after?
A lot of people do go into trance. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people fall asleep.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, they wake up to the rattle. Yeah. What, and do you use that? If you do notice them going trance, do you use pre-hypnotic, post-hypnotic suggestion? Do you go that far with it, or you just kind of let the experience stand on its own?
I let the sounds do its magic, because, the workshop is very intentional. This experience is very intentional, and people are coming in with these intentions, and then I help them trust that sound is going to go in and balance those energy centers, the parts of the body that need to be balanced in order to come back into, a feeling of confidence or rest, whatever they're wanting.
What I'm glad you used the word trust, because that's exactly what I thought of. Is I bet it takes a lot of, like, your pre-session work is probably pretty vital to this, because I would think there would have to be a great sense of trust to go vulnerable, right? Trust that process, because it's not 5 minutes. I mean, you're in there for, an hour or two, and to kind of ride that wave and go through those sounds and feel the vibration and get into trance state. They must have to really trust you to kind of go through that, so it's interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting, because a lot of these people I don't meet beforehand. A lot of them meet at the very beginning. And so even in that like opening circle of connection is a way of building trust. And then I think the vocal toning part is really vulnerable. So we build a lot of trust there. And I always, try and make the space really comfy and cozy and like light, low lights, and yeah.
All right. So I'll exercise some of that trust now, and I'll tell you my story. So since it's just me and you talking, right? Nobody else is going to see this. I've been pretty open on this show about some of my past experiences with anxiety and panic attacks and things of that nature, right? And so, always played sports and everything growing up, pretty well in control of my body. And then during grad school, stuff going on, blah, 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 kind of lost control of my body, and things started happening that I was not really sure where they were coming from. I wasn't sure what to do about them. It wasn't something I could kind of like just outwork. That was always the default setting. Like, well, work harder, focus harder. You're sitting there going, yeah. And that just made things worse, right? Yeah. It made it a lot worse. So, I had a period of my life, a couple years, where it was a pretty regular event where I could feel them coming on, and it's like, okay, I'm in trouble. Like, this is going to be a problem. Trips to the hospital and things like that. And made even worse by the fact that they don't find anything, right? So you're sort of like, now you're at odds with reality in your body, right? Like, my body's telling me one thing, but like medical professionals and blinking and bleeping machines are telling you a different thing. And you're like, okay, what's going on here? But obviously we've done the work, and we're progressing, and I don't know if you ever say cured, but definitely well maintained, and life is good, right? We got to work on that. But what's interesting and what connects to your story is the humming part, because I had no training in that. But there were times I can remember when I was in severe panic attacks, like, am I going to the hospital? And you literally feel like you're going to die, where sort of intuitively there'd be a little rocking and a little humming that would kind of begin, right? And I didn't read this. It wasn't a strategy. It wasn't something I was trained to do. And honestly, once I became conscious of it, I felt kind of silly and ridiculous for even doing it. You know what I mean? Like, what is that about? But it did offer a great deal of relief. Not enough to, quote unquote, cure everything and move past. But in those moments, it was certainly something that offered relief in those moments. And so that's why I asked what the science was and why that worked, because I don't know if I could recreate it now because I'm in a pretty peaceful state, but it sounded the same. It kind of had the same pace and frequency and depth, and it's just sort of like a place that I would naturally go in those tough moments. And it just was like, it just came out. It's just sort of natural and just sort of, offered some relief. So you have a very knowing smile. So is that kind of what you see a lot with your work? And does that fit the profile for kind of how people use that naturally? Or is this like, Jason, something's really wrong with you?
I'm just like so resonating with you because I'm noticing like how, intuitive and that you were in that moment to like connect with that. Like your body knew exactly what you needed. And that's, what I'm so passionate about is teaching people to recognize that. Like, this is a tool that you have with you all the time is your voice and the movement, like, talk about that completion of that stress response and like moving that energy. Like it's so, so, so valuable.
Hearing you guys talking about it made me think of the last time I had like COVID. First 3 days, I was like in bed and going, just in pain. And I did that. I wasn't realizing that I was doing it. But yeah, it makes perfect sense now.
And very, very interesting that it's not taught, and very interesting that in times of pain or distress, it becomes present. And so now we're back to that concept of trusting yourself and trusting your body, that it does have answers, that connecting with the earth. You had talked about, connecting with the earth as a strategy as well. Before we go on, I want to say a few words about Anew Behavioral Health. Anew Behavioral Health is an outpatient provider of mental health and substance abuse services in Ohio and New Hampshire. That means that Anew can successfully treat mental health and substance abuse issues or dual diagnosis if you're struggling with both. Their integrated approach allows for them to successfully address issues related to anxiety, depression, addiction, trauma, and really anything that stands between your life and the life you could be living. You really cannot bring them an issue that they have not successfully treated. They have also solved one of the biggest problems for people seeking help. They have a dedicated team waiting to hear from you at helpnow@anewbh.com. If you contact them today, within 24 hours, you will have heard back from, wait for this, a real live person, and will also have your first appointment scheduled at that time. So how do you contact them? Well, if you're in Ohio or New Hampshire, you're probably close to one of their local locations. You're welcome to go in. If not, you can always reach them online at anewbh.com. And if you're interested in services for you or loved one, use that address, helpnow@anewbh.com. What do you do? I mean, what are the techniques, or how does somebody properly connect with the earth? Like, what are the techniques there?
In the work that I'm doing right now, I bring in the elements, and specifically when we're working with bowls, with the crystal bowls, there's an element that associates to the bowl, which then associates to a different part of your body. So an example of that would be, helping you get connected with the earth at the base of your spine and really feeling the strength in your body, feeling the strength in your bones and your muscles. And then moving up to like the womb or the hara for males, and really connecting with the element of water and fluidity and our sensuality and our creativity. And then moving up to like the solar plexus. I mean, I could take you through a whole meditation, but I'm just kind of like flying through them. At the solar plexus, like the center of our body, just below above our belly button and below our rib cage, we work with the element of fire. So this is like the seed of our confidence and our self-authority. And so we bring a lot of fire energy here. And that's also like the digestive system. bringing energy to digestion and how that can aid your overall health. And then in the heart, we work with the element of air and just allowing the flowy energy of air to just surround you with love and help you build like self-love and compassion. And then space or ether is for the throat. So really, how can we take up more space with our voice so that we can improve our communication and feeling heard and seen in that way? And then moving up the element of light with our the center of our head and working with, how can the element of light help us like see our path more clearly and allow us to tune into that intuition that we always have with us, that deeper knowing and knowledge. And then lastly, consciousness as an element at the very top of your head and beyond, just working with the collective consciousness or, divine energy, spiritual energy, cosmic energy, nature energy, whatever it is in your practice, to also be a resource at any given time. So I teach my clients how to connect with the different elements within their body and pair that with sound or vocal toning.
So it works in combination. If this is, and it seems to be, I mean, we're sharing stories here of how natural and intuitive this is. If this is so natural, why does it feel, and maybe this is just, I don't know, maybe it's just my opinion, but it doesn't feel like the majority of people connect to these elements. It doesn't feel like this is common practice or commonplace. So is that a matter of awareness? Is that a matter of us living in a way that disconnects us from these natural elements? Like, why is this not more prevalent or utilized more often? Because it just seems to already be there. It seems to make a lot of sense. So how did we become so disconnected from this?
That's like the $1 million question, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. Because if we hadn't drifted, we wouldn't need to reconnect, right?
Yeah. I think it's different for everybody. I know I can speak from a personal place, so focused on career and job and school and, blah, 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 and trying to be successful, blah, 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 like all the things that we get caught up with and that put us into that state of overwhelm or burnout.
We're kind of screwing this up, aren't we? We're kind of like, I mean, because if you think about, right, like, I mean, you've studied this, I haven't. There probably is a lot of evidence of use of this in ancient civilizations and early civilizations, and then other things, other practices take its place, which bring, and I like how you emphasize disease. You say it a little differently, dis-ease. Like I've noticed that a couple times. But we're sort of doing this to ourselves, right? It's not like new things showed up on earth and put us in a state of dis-ease. It's like we're creating this and then using it to disconnect ourselves from those things that kept us healthy for so long. So kind of. I rail against the internet and phones and that kind of stuff, and I wonder how much of this is like self-inflicted wounds, right? Like how much of this is just self-damage that you're helping to undo,
And it comes from like such a, I think, innocent place of just wanting to be successful or wanting to be better, wanting to have a happy life, but we get caught up in all the extra stuff when really we can just come back to the basics.
How has your life changed as you learn this and go along? I mean, has it had an impact in how you're focusing your goals, or is that drive still in there? Do you still have to struggle balancing, ambition versus connection or acquisition versus satisfaction, like, is that still going on, or has it changed things for you?
Daily practice for me, Jason. Daily practice. Daily reminders of like, it's okay. It's okay to not put that social media post out because you're trying to, attract people. Like, it's okay to just go take a nap.
Yeah.
Instead. Yeah.
It's tough to be in that in between. So with this workshop that's coming up, I want to talk a little bit more about that. So do they get, you said it's focused more on the toning and, what exactly will people experience through this workshop and how does that differ? Is it like more of an introduction to your work or will they get sort of a full cycle of what you've described here?
Yeah, so right now I'm currently offering a 7-part workshop series at the Dairy Art Center, and we only have 3 more left in this series, but I'm going to be, continuing to teach this workshop in a group setting, either at Dairy Arts or at my office or some other places around here. And I also work individually. At my office, I've done individual sessions with people that aren't feeling comfortable in a group setting. And so it's a very similar layout to what I've been doing for the workshop. And this one that I'm leading right now for the Dairy Arts Center, they specifically asked me to come because they wanted to create more workshops around helping people come back together in community and really connect as a community post-COVID and all the things and do some group healing. So, yeah.
Do you have any, I know every patient or client or individual is their own person, right? But as far as your practices and what you've learned through your practices, do you have any recommendations for just daily living, like things that people can start investing in, kind of day in, if they can't make a workshop or they can't, they don't live in Boulder, Colorado, or they, you know what I mean? So what are some of those more healthful or connecting practices that you would recommend for people just kind of in general?
Yeah. Well, I could give you a little mini demo meditation.
Yes. You heard the hiss. Iann is very excited about this. Yes, of course. Yeah.
And everything that I'm going to demo, you can do without a bowl, but you can also just turn on, Crystal Singing Bowl online and do it with a bowl. I do this in my car every day, going to work and from work, going to work to help me feel balanced before I see clients. And then after work to kind of release and let go and come back to myself before I return home. And then I also do this in the bath. I put my ears underneath the water and I tone and I let it kind of move through my whole body. So I'm going to bring my bowl over here.
Absolutely. This is the most well-prepared guest we've ever had. I mean, this is demonstrations, visual aids. We now have a bowl. We need to look at a regular segment for Janis. This is insane. So yes, let's see it.
So this is a sea bowl. I'm going to take you through just a mini demo of what I do with my...
What should we be doing? Should we be
I'm going to guide you.
Okay, we'll listen. We'll be good listeners.
Just listen.
So let's start by just closing your eyes if that feels comfortable. And if closing your eyes doesn't feel comfortable, that's okay. Just finding a spot to softly gaze at. And we'll begin just tuning into the sound of the bowl. Bringing awareness to your sit bones wherever they're seated, noticing your feet on the earth. Let's just take a collective deep inhale and full exhale, just allowing your body to sink deeper into your seat. Imagining the color red, the element of earth. Connecting with your breath. Maybe finding an inhale and exhale that feels soothing to you. And as you tune into the sound of the bowl, just allow the element of earth to come into the base of your spine, feeling the strength of the mountain, the richness of the soil. here we're bringing the energy of safety, security, and stability. So as we're going to vocal tone together, just imagine bringing that energy, bringing the sound, bringing the vibrations of your voice, and balancing the base of your spine. And the action statement here is I am. So you can just be feeling that I am safe, I am secure, I am stable. And we're going to tone with the Bija mantra, LAM, L-A-M, LAM. And just know when we vocal tone, it's not about sounding good. It's about really feeling the vibrations of your voice and sending that energy down to the base of your spine. So taking a deep inhale and a full exhale. And then taking a deep inhale to prepare. And we'll do like a call and response. I'll tone and then you can join in. Together, just feeling the vibration of your own voice. Here we go. Allowing your body to settle even deeper into your seat, feeling the element of the earth, feeling supported. Taking a moment to just feel gratitude in this moment for you showing up for yourself in this way. Knowing that you have this tool with you whenever you need it, whenever you're feeling a moment of anxiety or fear or just unknown. Bringing your awareness back to the element of earth and feeling the vibrations of your voice in your body. Go ahead and take one final inhale and a full exhale. And then begin waking yourself up to the environment that you're in through your 5 senses, noticing any smells or tastes. And noticing other sounds in the room, expanding your awareness to sounds outside of the room. Feeling your sense of touch, noticing the temperature of the air on your skin. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes and welcoming in light. Maybe looking around the space, noticing textures, Noticing color, movement, and allowing whatever movement in your body that feels nurturing in this moment. Maybe it's a stretch, maybe it's a yawn.
Don't look at me like that. I'm not going to cry, Jason.
Stop softly gazing at me, Ian. That's what I want to. No, Ian, I wanted to check in with you first because I felt some stuff there. What was that experience like for you? And Janis, thank you so much for taking us through that. That was something. I want to talk about that. So, Ian, how was that for you?
If you guys remember the Cheryl episode, some elements of this reminded me of that, but it's different because it wasn't just using the human voice. It was also using this bowl, which sounds really good, and I bet it sounds even better in person. So definitely a new experience for me. As soon as we started, vocal toning, that took it to the next level as well. I feel like if people want to try something like this, don't be shy. Definitely, use your voice. It's really powerful. What about you, Jason?
Yeah, so I'm pretty naturally skeptical about sort of, what I mean? I'm just sort of like, I'm from Missouri, right? It's a show me state, and it's like, but I will tell you, and really quickly, so near the top of my spine, where my spine connects to my neck, I felt like some relief there, like really quick. I really did, because I was surprised to feel anything. Like, I just want to be transparent about my experience of the whole thing. I was like, okay, we'll go through this, but I did feel something there, and it felt a little bit cooler, kind of going down my back. And then I immediately started to drift. Like, I thought about when you said people would come to your workshops and some would fall asleep. Like, I kind of feel like I was going to be that guy. And so I was like, you probably noticed on the film, I was kind of fidgeting a little bit and moving myself around. It was more because I was like, I cannot fall asleep with these headphones on and like on camera, like, what I mean? So I don't know if that's just relaxation. I don't know if that's tension or what that, do you have a sense of what was going on in that moment? Is that a typical reaction, or what was going on there?
Yeah. So as our nervous system's settling, our body actually twitches. I see that a lot, especially when my clients, like after the vocal toning piece, when we go into the sound bath piece, when they're laying down, that's, energy, usually blocked energy, trauma energy, whatever, stress energy, whatever you want to call it, that's energy like literally moving and releasing from your body. So twitching and shaking sometimes can be a really normal reaction as you're doing this practice, because it's just releasing. Your body's just releasing energy that's no longer needed, and you're coming back into balance.
I definitely felt instantly cooler in like that specific area. And then I just started getting really tired. I was going to take a nap. I was going to drift off. So I don't know. That's crazy. It's crazy. What do you wish people, when you think about your field, you think about these types of practices, and I've been in the therapeutic world for quite a while, and this is very new to me too. Like, what are some kind of core concepts or some things that you really wish more people knew about these practices or knew about this approach to healing? I know you've shared a lot of like core concepts and your beliefs about it, but it's like what I'm really trying to dial into, are there any kind of things that people are really missing about this? Or, man, I just wish I could share this potential, this aspect of it with everybody. I wish people were more aware of what about these practices.
What I would want people to know about, especially just about expressive arts in general, not just sound, not just vocals, but any expressive art. So, visual arts, movement, dance, writing, poetry, like to simplify it. And I have said this a few times in this podcast, but I think it's the most important takeaway is like to simplify it in order to feel happy and healthy, or joyful and healthy, feel strength, confidence, embodiment, empowerment. Like, it's all about learning about what your body is needing to move through energetically. And the expressive arts is a fantastic way to do that. And it's a creative way and it's a fun way, right? Like talk therapy, we're also moving, we're also sharing, we're also expressing. But when you can combine that with one of these other expressive arts modalities, like it makes it that much more rich. And it can be, just life changing.
I was thinking, obviously from my frame, talk therapy, I just feel like this would play very well with that. I can see a lot of like, you come to me for the talk therapy and then you go see Janis for a session each week. The combination, I think they would multiply each other's impact. I really do. The processing of what just happened, why I was feeling that, okay, and then the physical aspect of moving the energy through the body and clearing those blocked energies and be able to express that in a different way versus just because sometimes people in my field, they do feel like they're talking to themselves in circles, right? And sometimes you need another outlet. You need a place to put this. You need a different experience around that. So I think they play very well together for sure. What about feedback from your clients and your patients? I mean, do you have any kind of before and after themes that you typically hear? I mean, what do people who are engaged in this going through, what do they report in terms of the changing of their experience or how this has changed things for them?
Yeah. Well, on an individual level, I have one person in mind in particular, and I'm going to be really conscious about how I share about this.
Say their full name first so we know who you're talking. I'm kidding. Describe them physically. No, go ahead. I was good.
Yeah, they struggle with self-esteem and confidence, and there, have been some particular social situations where they haven't been feeling empowered, or rather they don't feel understood. They don't feel important, and they have a lot of anxious thoughts around what other people are thinking about them. And there was one particular incident that really upset them, and they came in to session pretty dysregulated and crying, and we talked for a little while, and then I invited them into some vocal toning, meditation always first, and then some vocal toning. And by the time we were kind of ending the session, they were doing vocal toning on their own. Like I just shut up and invited them to tone, and they were like toning and toning and toning. And I could just feel like the shift from dysregulation to empowerment to like feeling really empowered and resourced. And you just reported feeling, so much lighter when they left the session, and their minds were a lot more calmer. And, since then have reported that they have felt, more confident in the social situation. So that's just one kind of individual example.
Yeah. Yeah. And you say the one as if it's like an apology, but I got to tell you, having worked in the healing arts for a long time, it's never just one, right? Because they're sharing that with somebody else. They're taking that forward. And those ones, they keep you going through so many of the other difficult situations, right? Like we talk a lot about sort of, therapists and healers are supposed to have all the answers and be perfectly regulated themselves, as if we're not also humans, right? As if we're not also just listening to certain things to get ready for work, as if we're not also stuck in sessions or not also having bad days ourselves, And I know the power of those experiences for somebody to go like, hey, you helped me and it's working. It's the closest thing to magic that I've seen, to real magic. And it can fuel a helper or healer like yourself for a very long time. So those are powerful, powerful experiences. We're getting short on time, but I did want to give you an opportunity like I do, everybody else at this point. Is there anything, whether it be resource-wise you'd like to direct people to, or anything that you want to make sure that your message gets out, an aspect of this that you wanted to share that maybe we didn't get, maybe we didn't cover. So any final thoughts in that regard, or?
Yeah, well, I could share my website. I'm sure you'll share that in below, but boulderarttherapy.com, and the emphasis is on art. And there you'll find, some information about Maddie and I. We're in a group practice. So Matt, our bios, and also more about sound healing in general. And I do offer, sound healing at a distance. I still haven't figured out how to do the whole sound thing on Zoom, but maybe Ian can really help me with that. Yeah. And then if you're in Boulder, Denver area, please look me up. I'm happy to schedule a one-on-one session or invite you to whatever group that we have going on. And then we also run a teen group, a dialectical behavioral therapy and process group for teens in the area for female identifying teens between the ages of 14 and 17. So that's an ongoing group that meets on Tuesdays.
You seem drawn to that gender. You say you work mainly with women, now female identifying. You feel the connection in that population. You can tell. That's amazing.
I do, yeah. Not to say I don't work with pretty much all genders. Actually, a lot of my clients are non-binary. And there's something really magical about working with female identifying. Mm-hmm. My passion project that is on hold. I was sharing with Ian about it before this, but it's called We Wild. It's a women's program. We Wild, women empowering women via intuition, love, dance, and expression. And I started it online during COVID, beginning of 2020, and it was great. 8-week workshop online, and then I was going to transfer that into an in-person workshop at the beginning of last year, but then the fires happened, and then my personal life just kind of got wild over last year, and I never got it started in person. So it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to reviving and getting going again, and building, that stronger community of women where we can come together and explore some of these outlets together.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. I think sounds like you took the wild part of that too literal, and you got a little wild yourself in your personal life, you said. So now you're back on track and you can bring that. And it is all jokes aside, a wonderful resource. I work with a lot of young men and women, and they are lacking for resources, whether it be family structures breaking down, whether it be that disconnect from social media, whether it be changes in our schools, the lack of those, rituals, lack of people they can trust. We talked about becoming the person that you could have trusted as a child, and you've certainly done that, and I'm certain that you are that for lots of people. You had me and Ian in a very trusting position here very quick, and we're not easy guys to get into that position. So it was great. It was a great experience, and I want to thank you so much for coming by. And we'll have to keep these conversations going. We'll post all of your links and everything like that. Ian does a great job with that. But please, as these new projects click into place, let us know. We'll share on all of our socials and do all we can to raise awareness, because before I sat down tonight, I didn't know any of this, and I'm intrigued. I'm impacted. I think it's amazing work that you're doing, so I hope you keep with it for sure.
Well, thank you both so much. Yeah, it's been really great to connect with both of you.
Yeah, it's weird how the world finds people and connections, and things happen for a reason and all that good stuff. And we kept the light. We saved. We were racing the light in Boulder, but we have some, and looks like you turned on the light to help us out there a little bit. But
I have one little light.
It's hanging in there for dear life.
Just moving my head to make sure it's in the.
Yeah. Well, we were discussing that dark content. You drop your chin, and the shadows creep over, so it has a nice effect. Yeah, there it is. So it has a nice effect. So. No, but seriously, Janis, thank you so much, and thanks for stopping by. And everybody who's watching this, please, click the links below, check out her bio, check out the work that she's doing. There are some online offerings. I know that you guys have heard the commercial at this point, but I also want to mention Anew Behavioral Health at this time. They're also accessible. They do great work in a traditional therapy sense, psychiatric work, nursing, case management, therapy. And as we just discussed with Janis, it's a great companion to the work that she's doing. I think they play off of each other. So Don't limit yourself. Don't choose. Check out both. Find the right fit for you. And I hope that you will, because I think there's a lot of magic in both approaches, and we can change some lives together. So again, thank you, Janis. And again, thank you guys for listening. And until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Thanks so much. Hey guys, although Through Helping Back is an excellent podcast with a lot of great ideas, I do want to let you know that in no way is Through Helping Back expected to be perceived as or relied upon in any way as specific medical advice or mental health advice for you personally. The information provided through Helping Back on our website or our podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment that can be provided by your own providers. Do not use our content in lieu of professional advice given by qualified medical professionals, and do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking professional advice because of the information you have read on our website, heard on our podcast, or otherwise received from us. Although we love discussing issues related to healthcare, mental health, and addiction, we are not providing direct healthcare, mental health care, medical, or nutrition therapy services. We're not attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure in any manner whatsoever any physical or psychological ailment, any mental or emotional issue, disease, or condition. We are not giving you specific medical, psychological, or religious advice whatsoever. Please take care of yourself and take care of others as you always seek the advice of your own medical providers and your own mental health providers regarding any questions or concerns you have about your specific health, or before implementing any recommendations or suggestions from us. These are ideas that have worked for other people. We think it's important to share them. We do not guarantee that they will work for you specifically. Do not stop taking any medications without speaking to your physician, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, mental health provider, or any other healthcare or medical professional. And if you have or suspect that you have a medical or mental health issue, contact your own healthcare provider promptly. Also, one last thing, if you know or suspect that you are currently experiencing a crisis, it is absolutely imperative that you seek the advice of your doctor or other emergency healthcare services prior to ever thinking about using our content. We love the conversations. We're glad you're stopping by. We hope you take a lot from the content. But again, for your specific individual medical situation, please always seek quality personal care from your own providers. Do not let this information or this advice stand on its own. Thanks so much for listening.